All right, everybody, here is Cornelius Jones. Here we go one more time with part two. My video cut off there, and so here we are with part two with does September 23rd, 2017 line up with Daniel 12 prophecy, with the Daniel 12 prophecy. So where I left off in the last video, let's jump right into it. I was explaining the gap period between the dispensational periods. Okay, so just very quickly to review. In the dispensations between the 69th week of Daniel and the church age, you have a 57-day gap and a resurrection. If September 23rd is the actual date of the rapture, assuming that is correct, you would also have a 57-day gap and a resurrection between the end of the church age and the beginning of the tribulation period. So you have two 57-day gaps there and resurrections between those two dispensational periods. Now, if you look at Daniel's 70th week, which is the tribulation period, and you look at the end of that dispensation and the millennial reign, well, you also have another gap and a tribulation. The only difference is with this gap, instead of a 57-day gap, you would have a 75-day gap. But what's interesting is you still have the same two digits. 75 is 57 backwards, okay? So 5 is the number of grace and 7 is the number of completion. Well, very briefly, how do we know it's a 75-day gap? Well, after the times and a half a time in Daniel chapter 12, we see that it says here in, let's see, what verse is it? In verse 11, it says, from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away and the abomination of desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. So in the verse prior, it talked about the 1,260. Now it's talking about the 1,290. And then in the very next verse, it says, blessed is he who waits and comes to the 1,335. Okay, so the 1,290 is an additional 30 days, and the 1,335 is an additional 45 days. So 30 plus 45 is 75. I believe the beginning of the millennial reign starts after that 1,335 because it says, blessed is he who waits and attains to that day, which I believe is the day that where all the blessings, the allotted portions of the inheritance that Jesus Christ is giving out in the millennial reign will come to fruition. Okay, so you have a 75-day gap. The resurrection there will be the resurrection of the Old Testament saints and the tribulation saints. So you have three gaps: 57-day gap with Christ's resurrection, between 69 weeks in the church age, and between the church age and the tribulation period, you would have another 57-day gap with the resurrection of the saints in Christ, the dead in Christ. Then between the tribulation and millennial reign, you would have a 75-day gap with the resurrection of the church age saints and the tribulation saints. So that's how I see it. Guys, I think that is just completely awesome there with those gaps. That I think that is just amazing. And, you guys can do the math on that. Check it out for yourself and, tell me what you think. Now, having said that, I want to get into now for the rest of this video. I want to get into what I feel is something that is so amazing. You are not going to find this anywhere. Okay. You are not going to find this anywhere. Okay. Are you ready? Now, real quick. I just got to get this one thing out that just came to my mind. I'm sorry about that. Listen, check this out. If these dates are correct, if in the book of Daniel, okay, in the nutshell, let me close this out before I move on to the next part. If you look at the book of Daniel, I believe that it's pointing to the tribulation because, very simply, you have the atonement 7 days in the future, October 12th. You subtract, if that's true, if you subtract the 2,520 days, you're going to come to November 19th, okay? And I already explained the gap 57-day gap between September 23rd and November 19th. Now watch this. That means from September 23rd, okay, all the way to the end of the tribulation period, you would have exactly 2,577 days. And there you go again, that 577. There you go, 2,577 days. That 577 is just heavily in here. This is Hebrew year 5777. September 23rd to the end of the tribulation period, okay, with the book of with the days that Daniel gives us, along with the 57-day gap, a total of 2,577 days. I think that's interesting. Okay, I think that is very, very interesting. So, however, that's that. Now, let me move on. Okay, now, again, assuming these days are correct, here's the interesting part that you're not going to find anywhere else. This is what I did. I looked up each one of these dates in my Star Watch app, okay? Or you can do the same thing if you have Stellarium or any stargazing app. I looked up these dates. I went into the future at these dates and I looked at the location of the planets and of the stars. And it's very interesting what I came about. Now watch this. This is just amazing. It's very interesting to me, okay? Now, just to give you a little understanding here, you have to understand, first of all, we are not talking about astrology, okay? Astrology is demonic. That is of Satan. Satan is the one that came up with the zodiac, and we don't look to constellations according to when we were born for advice on how to live our life, fortune telling and all that stuff. That's not the purpose. That's not what we do. But you have to understand, it was Satan that perverted what God made perfect. It was the Lord who named the stars, okay? Remember Job 38. God named constellations, okay? God named the stars. He put them in their specific place for signs, okay? So understanding that, the constellations do have biblical meaning, okay? So I'm going to go over them very quickly and also go over some of the meaning of some of these planets, okay? So Virgo, that's the woman, Israel. Libra, that's the scales, which represent judgment. Scorpius, that's the scorpion, that represents the defiled one. Sagittarius, that's the picture with the horse, with the rider, with the bow, okay? We see that picture in the first seal in Revelation when the first seal is open. Capricorn, that's the goat that represents sacrifice. Aquarius, that's the water being poured out with the man with the water. Remember the flood? That represents God's wrath. Pisces, which is the fish, represents God's chosen or God's remnant. Aries, which is the ram, represents Christ's sacrifice. Taurus, which is the bull, represents God coming back. Gemini, which is the twins, represents oneness. Cancer, which is the crab, represents gathering. And Lion, which is Leo, which is the lion, represents the king. Now, I know this is a lot. Thank God it's a video. You can always pause it, rewind it, and listen to this again. Okay, so that's the general meaning biblically of the constellations in the heavens. Now you couple that with the meaning of the planets, okay? There are a couple of key planets that I want to look at, what I'm about to show you right here. Jupiter, the biggest, largest planet, which represents God the Father. Venus, which represents Jesus Christ. And then you have Saturn, which represents Satan, and the moon that represents Israel. Now, there are other meanings. I just want to touch on these because I want to look at something very specific. Now, when you go in these and look in the future at these dates that I just talked about, assuming September 23rd is the correct date for the rapture, then look at November 19th, 2017, the beginning of the tribulation. May 2nd, 2021, the midpoint of the tribulation. October 12th, 2024, which would be the end of the tribulation. And then finally, December 26th, 2024, which will be the millennial reign. Guys, when you look at these planets and where they line up with the constellations, it's very interesting. Let's get into this, okay? Check this out. You're not going to find this anywhere else, okay? I believe God gave this to me. But check this out, guys. Just check it out for yourself, and you tell me whether you think if it's interesting or does it have any meaning, okay? So this is very interesting. Watch what I discovered here, okay? So November 19th, okay? Let's say that's the start of the tribulation. Well, when you look at November 19th, 2017, what you're going to find is Saturn at Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the rider on the horse with the bow. Isn't that exactly what happens in Revelation when the first seal is open? What happens? The Antichrist, he goes out conquering and he rises in power. That's what happens with in Revelation. And that's where you see Saturn, which represents Satan, right at Sagittarius. Okay. The moon is right next to Saturn. And it's also the moon is at Scorpius, which represents the defiled one. Well, what's going to happen in the beginning of the tribulation? Israel, which represents the moon, represents Israel. Israel is going to be what? Defiled, because they're making an agreement with the false Messiah, the Antichrist. What? Oh my God, that is so amazing to me. So amazing. And then finally, on November 19th, you have Jupiter, Venus, and the sun all in a perfect alignment at Libra, which is the scales, which represent what? Judgment. You gotta check this out for yourself. It's amazing. Okay, so that's November 19th, which will be the beginning of the tribulation. Now watch what you're going to see on May 2nd, 2021, which represents the middle of the tribulation. Of course, assuming these dates are correct. But in the middle of the tribulation, you're going to see Saturn at Capricorn, okay? Now, Capricorn represents what? The sacrifices. What are you going to see in the middle of the tribulation? The Antichrist removing the sacrifices and setting himself up as God, okay? Because he wants to be worshiped. Then you're also going to see the moon right next to Saturn at Capricorn. The sacrifices have to do with the Israel and the Antichrist moving them away. And you're going to see the Saturn and the moon, a planet that represents Satan and the planet and a body that represents Israel right at the constellation that means sacrifice. That's unbelievable to me. You can't make this stuff up, okay? Then you're going to have Jupiter on this same day at Aquarius, which means God's wrath, because he's getting ready to pour it out. This is on May 2nd, 2021. Now, let's move on. October 12th, 2024, the end of the tribulation. When you fast forward and look at the skies and the heavens, this is what you're going to see. Now you're going to see Saturn in the water area of Aquarius. It looks like the water is being poured out on Satan, or in other words, the wrath is being poured out on Satan. That's at the end of the tribulation. When Jesus Christ comes back, he's going to put, after the war of Armageddon, he's going to put Satan in the abyss, okay, for 1,000 years. The moon now, on October 12th, is all by itself at Capricorn, because the sacrifices will be restored to its rightful place. Venus is going to be at Aries, right in the center of Aries. Remember, which represents judgment, justice, order. Venus represents Jesus Christ. And Jupiter is going to be at Taurus, right in the horns of Taurus. And Taurus represents God is coming back. That's the biblical meaning of Taurus. God is coming back. And at a time when Christ is coming back, Jupiter, the king planet, is going to be right in the horns of Taurus. This is unbelievable, if you ask me. But you gotta check this stuff out for yourself. You won't believe it until you go fast forward these dates and look in your star app watch or look at Stellarium and check it out for yourself. I'm telling you, it's going to be there. And finally, December 26th, which could represent the beginning of the millennial reign, Saturn is still at Aquarius in the water. He hasn't moved, okay? Still in the pit, still getting God's wrath. Jupiter still at Taurus. But now you have Venus, which represents Jesus Christ, at Capricorn, the sacrifices. Why? Because the sacrifices has been restored into its rightful order. The temple has been cleansed by that time, and the sacrifices are now happening as they're supposed to happen. And Jesus Christ is the center of those sacrifices. Okay? Oh my gosh. The moon is going to be found at Libra, which I feel that that's a representation of now Israel is back in order. Okay? So, guys, that's what I found. That's what I found looking at the skies of I calculated these dates just by doing some simple math. Again, if you guys want a copy of this chart that just outlines the entire outline here, just send me an email. I'll gladly send it to you. Okay? So, guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed this teaching here. As it looks to me, September 23rd, it completely lines up with the calculations of Daniel chapter 12 when you consider the history of this 57-day gap between dispensations. So that's amazing to me, guys. I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. I would love to hear your comments. And just remember, guys, the most important thing of all, make sure you have a relationship with Jesus Christ. Make sure the blood that he shed on the cross is applied to you because you have placed your faith in Christ Jesus. If you are a Christian, make sure you are serving him. Make sure you are living for him. Make sure you are watching for his blessed return. Guys, also, just want to say one more thing. Please keep me in prayer. I am doing an event coming up on Saturday in 2 days from today, which is September 7th. On Saturday, September 9th, we're going out. We're going to do our first food mission. I got 20-something volunteers lined up. Even we're just gonna go out there with T-shirts. We're gonna be passing out free food. I'm gonna be doing a gospel illustration, praying that people are come to Christ. For all of those of you who have donated, thank you so much. If those of you still want to do that, you still have an opportunity. But I just wanted to say thank you again. And most importantly, just please keep us in prayer that we bring many, many, many souls to Jesus Christ. I need your prayers. And I just thank you so much for your time in that regard. So this is Cornelius Jones signing off. I will check back up with you next time when we get into, stay tuned, our Revelation 12 series. I hope you felt these teachings are truly worth it. Hope you are enjoying them. And I would see you guys next time. I love you dearly in the Lord and be blessed.